Hallo und herzlich willkommen zu einem kleinen Interview, das ein klein wenig heraussticht zu dem Rest, was wir sonst hier haben. Wir haben normalerweise Interviews mit Entwicklern, die uns ein klein wenig über ihre Spiele berichten. Und heute haben wir ein Interview, das wir nicht mit einem Entwickler machen, sondern mit einem Kollegen, mit einem Journalisten, der aber kein normaler Journalist ist, sondern Rang und Name hat. Derjenige ist nämlich Geoff Keighley. Er ist dafür bekannt, dass er der Gründer und der Moderator der Game Awards ist. Und das passt ganz gut, denn wir befinden uns gerade in der Game Awards Nacht. Habe Geoff Keighley hier an der Leitung und werde ein klein wenig mit ihm über die Awardshow an sich sprechen, über seine Beziehung zu Videospielen. Wir werden ein klein wenig über Hype sprechen und wo uns die Reise noch so trägt. Ich hoffe, ihr habt viel Spaß. Ich werde dafür jetzt auf Englisch switchen. Deswegen wird das jetzt ein klein wenig fremdsprachig, aber fremdsprachig ist ja hier bei uns nicht fremd. In diesem Sinne, viel Spaß mit dem Interview. Ich werde es auf jeden Fall haben. Geoff, can you hear me?
Hello, how are you?
I'm doing fine. I hope you're doing good.
I'm doing good. Busy, getting excited for the show.
Yeah, I'm totally excited that you have the time to speak with us. I'm totally appreciating this. Thank you again. And Geoff.
Of course. Thank you guys for airing the show over in Germany. I know it's a very late night when you have to broadcast the show. It's starts at I think 2 or 3 in the morning there, right?
Totally. It is late, but we're enjoying ourselves and the show, so it is totally fine. Geoff, before we head straight into the interview, I would like to know how you're doing right now. The Game Awards are just around the corner. Are you stressed, excited? What is going on?
It's a combination of everything. We're obviously stressed because we want to make a great show, but we have an amazing lineup this year of announcements and world premieres and amazing nominees. So it's a tense time. The thing that I always struggle with is, you work all year and it all comes down to this 2-hour show that you produce, and we're 2 weeks away from it now. So it's stressful, but we're really excited. This is our 5th show, and I think it's gonna be our best one yet.
Perfect. For the very few people who don't know who you are, could you please tell us a bit more about yourself? How did you end up hosting and creating the Game Awards?
Yeah, my background is I was a journalist for many years in print magazines, and then transitioned to doing work on television in America on a network called G4, and then Spike TV, which is part of kind of the MTV family. And I spent about a decade there, and then in 2014, I left Viacom and kind of went off on my own to create the Game Awards. And at Spike, I did something called the Video Game Awards. I was a producer on that and involved in that show. But then when I left, I said, hey, I think there's a new show that I want to build directly for gamers that would be streamed around the world, be global. People could watch it in Germany live, could watch it in China and Japan. And that's what happened in 2014 when I created the Game Awards.
All right. Can you tell us more about how you came up with the idea for the Game Awards in the first place?
Yeah. I've always had an interest in celebrating the people that make games. My career has really been about writing articles on the creators behind the games. When I first started out in my career in 1993, I was a kid, and I got to go down to id Software when they first made Doom. I got to go to Valve during college when they were making the original Half-Life. And I've always been fascinated with the people that make games, and I thought that they never really got the respect that they deserved and mainstream attention. So for many years, I worked on the idea of an award show. What would the Oscars be for the video game world? And I was always working on through sort of other producers or other networks. And I finally realized in 2014, with the rise of YouTube and Twitch and a lot of these live streaming platforms, that maybe I could build it myself, finally make the show that I wanted to make to celebrate games. And really that was the vision for it, was how could we build a show that's for game creators, for game players, and a way to celebrate the year that was, but also give people a preview of a lot of big games coming in the future too.
Perfect. To give our audience context, can you tell us how you started in the industry as a journalist? I think the time back then was a bit different than today.
Yeah, I first started, it's a bit of a long story, but I'll tell you it. I was a fan of a lot of the early adventure games from companies like Sierra Online that did Leisure Suit Larry and King's Quest, and LucasArts, games like Monkey Island. And one day I wrote a letter to Sierra Online asking them how they made their games. I just sent it in the mail. This was back in the early 1990s when I was a small little boy in Canada. And to my surprise, they responded, and they sent me back a beta version of a game they were working on and said, hey, we'd love you to play this game, give us your feedback. So I got to do that just as a volunteer. I got to play some early versions of games. And how that led to being a journalist is then when the games came out, I was on some of the early internet systems like a service called CompuServe in America. And when the game came out, people would always get stuck and need hints or tips. So they'd go to these forums. And when they were looking for hints and tips, I was always someone who could answer their questions because I had already played through the game. So I sort of knew how to solve the puzzles. So to the casual observer, it seemed like I was someone who was this expert on these video games. And one day an editor from a magazine was reading the forum, because I think he was stuck too. And he noticed that I was really knowledgeable about games. It seemed that I was a good writer. And he sent me an email saying, hey, would you be interested in writing an article for our magazine? And that's really just started there and has continued from that point forward.
Perfect. To talk more about the awards in general,
Sure.
compared to the show last year, have you changed anything for the Game Awards this year? How was the feedback from the global audience, for example?
Yeah, we were really proud of how the show did last year. I think it's continued to improve. It's a bit daunting because every year the audience grows, people feel good about the show, they want more. We've had an amazing 4 years, so this 5th year it's a little scary, as I said, because we want to grow, we want to do more. This year I think is a refinement of what we've done in the past. We found that there was a really great response to the orchestra that we added last year. So you'll see the Game Awards orchestra again performing music from a bunch of video games this year. And then, other tweaks include sort of adding more categories for esports. We've got a number of new categories looking at the best esports event and host and moment of the year. We're doing a program called the Global Gaming Citizens that you'll hear more about, which is a way to recognize individuals in the community who are giving back to gamers and sort of improving the well-being of our industry and community. So it's things like that are sort of the general tweaks to the show, but we're at the same place, same time. We'll have tons of game announcements, more announcements than we've ever had before, I think, in the show. So it's not a radical reinvention. It's really a refinement of what we've already been doing.
All right, you have said that before. The Game Awards are, of course, known for their announcements. How do you approach two publishers to get those world premieres for the show, those Sekiros, Dark Souls 2s, etc.?
Yeah, it's a combination of me reaching out to game companies and often companies reaching out to us as well. This year we've had more games pitched to us than ever before. Most of the world premieres this year are brand new game announcements from major studios around the world, and it's pretty exciting that we can surprise people. I love that we're a big live event. The entire community around the world is watching, and we definitely have some things this year that no one will be expecting. It's fun because on the internet forums, I read them all, and people are, guessing about all these games that they think are going to be there, and a bunch of them won't, but there'll be all these other ones that no one even knows exist that are going to show up, and that's kind of the fun of this show. So it's a combination of me talking to people, get pitched on things, and it's a long process. I mean, I start really after E3 in June, but I had my first meeting on one of our world premieres back in February this year, where a studio pitched us and said, hey, all year we're going to work on this. We want to announce our game at the Game Awards. Here's our trailer. I'm working with that team for almost a year. So it really varies from time to time. There are also sometimes things that, we think we're going to have and drop out. Like last week, there was a game that wasn't ready, so they dropped out of the show. It always kind of evolves in real time.
All right, Jeff, you can't say all those things without giving us a peek. What can we expect from the Game Awards 2018?
In terms of announcements and world premieres?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, we haven't announced anything yet. What I could say is I think I'll give you a couple kind of trends or things to think about. First of all, we have more sort of new game announcements than ever before, which we're really excited about. So it's not just here's a new trailer for this game or that game. It's really like we're going to surprise you with the announcement of this game. We'll have some of the biggest franchises in the world will be announcing new installments. And we'll also have some really awesome independent teams and games that we're going to debut. And I love that contrast in our show between massive franchises and smaller games. We will also have some updates on existing games that are out today, but with more sort of what we call games as a service in the industry. More games that kind of continue to evolve over time. We're going to have more updates on those games. So last year, we, for instance, revealed like the new map for PUBG. We haven't said yet what we're doing this year with those types of games, but you'll definitely see kind of updates on a lot of big games that are already out but may have big content moments. For instance, Fortnite obviously is big. Its new season, I think, is dropping somewhere around the Game Awards. So, there's going to be a lot of interesting stuff happening over the next couple of weeks on that front.
All right, Jeff, can you tell us a reason why developers or publishers rejecting to appear on the Game Awards with an announcement after you approached them?
Any stories about people rejecting us?
Yeah.
Oh, it's never a rejection per se. It's more, are games ready or not? Okay. Look, I'm trying to think. I mean, we're pretty lucky that we get a lot of what we want, and sometimes people online will be like, "Why wasn't this game there?" Well, it's because probably A, the game wasn't in development, which is sometimes the case. B, it's just not ready, and C, sometimes it's a case of a developer wants to, do something on their own, or they have a different plan, or Blizzard has BlizzCon and they're going to probably announce things there versus the Game Awards. So it always sort of becomes a balance. There are always kind of heartbreaking moments where you think you have a game and then the developer will call you and say, hey, we're not ready. There was even a small indie game we were going to work with this year. A few weeks ago, they called me up and said, hey, we actually lost our funding from our publisher and we're not sure the game is going to still happen, so we don't feel comfortable moving ahead with that. So, it's an ongoing conversation with everyone. We actually feel bad because there are a lot of games we get pitched that we just can't include. Because our show is a balance between awards and world premieres, and we want to make sure that we strike that right balance. And there are a lot of games this year that I feel bad we just couldn't fit into the show. We've been kind of booked out for months really now in terms of that. So it's always challenging, and there are also developers that don't have time to make a trailer because they're finishing the game. And that's one thing that we always run into. It's like, we love this game, they love the Game Awards, we're just like, we don't have the time make a new trailer because we have to finish the game. So there's some of that happens every year. I'm sure there'll be games that people are expecting this year that won't be there because the developer's too busy or doesn't have time to make something.
All right. Speaking of announcements, what do you think about hype in general, especially after game releases like No Man's Sky or Fallout 76? Sure. Now, we saw Todd Howard at E3 this year talking about the new incredible technology in the game. Fast forward today, Fallout 76 is bombing with horrible bugs and technical problems. I would love to hear your thoughts about what kind of responsibility we have as part of the media to our audience when it comes to new announcements and the associated hype.
Sure, it's a good question. It's something I think about a lot, also being heavily involved in E3. I think the thing that we're finding overall is that the sort of PR hype cycle on games is decreasing. You'll see a lot of this at the Game Awards this year, but there'll be a significant number of games that will be announced and even launched the night of the show, I think. And that's something, that sort of shadow drop, as they call it in the music industry, of someone announcing something and making it live. We did that last year with the Champions Ballad DLC for Zelda, and I think you'll see more of that, of people saying, hey, we're going to announce something, but it's live, it's here now, it's, early access, get to play it, help us evolve the game over time. No Man's Sky, I think, is a great example of a game that, I helped sort of hype up initially. Pretty disappointing, in my opinion, when it finally came out, but now the team has done a great job of investing in that, reinventing it, and now it's up for Best Ongoing Game at the awards this year. So, games are not just a point in time now. And even something like Fallout 76 has had a rough launch. A year from now, the game could be fantastic. So it's an ongoing conversation with the audience. I just think the difference now is that people are naturally skeptical when something kind of gets teased. They want to see it, they want to play it. And I think the game developers now are involving the community more in the development of their game. They're allowing people to play it early. It's less about, hey, we got to get your $60 and then you're going to stop playing it after 2 or 3 days. It's more about, hey, we're building a long-term platform here. We just want more people to be involved in the sort of creative process around it. So, hype is always a difficult beast. And I look at last year with Sekiro, when we teased that, we showed, an arm twisting for 10 seconds. That was hype, but people got really excited when they finally realized what it was and created a lot of conversation. So, we like the theatrics, and as a community, I think the fun of getting hyped about things and wondering about things. And I love the surprise factor of our show. So I don't think there's anything bad about that. we just have to be mindful that these are, they are hype pieces, and we shouldn't be necessarily pre-ordering a game based on that trailer. We should just be curious about it.
Sure. No Man's Sky is a good buzzword. You've said it that you were involved in the announcement. I think the first trailer debuted at the VGX back in 2014. Yep. What would you say went wrong with the release of the game or with the announcement of the game back then?
Well, I think the announcement was went over really well, and that was a special moment. I think if anything, it just created so much anticipation about what it was going to be because it was such a great announcement, and it kind of sold you this vision of air, land, and sea, do whatever you want in this seamless world. So I think we all bought into the vision of it. Look, I've been very public about this with No Man's Sky. Is I think that hype unfortunately created this top spin that turned it into this, full retail game that was coming out, priced at a premium price, and the expectation was that there was more there than the team was able to deliver. So I think that was the challenge of that, and that was my concern. Is I really advocate strongly that they should have made that game more of a beta or early access release to let people sort of into the world and start to build it with the community. And look, I think they've evolved into that now with a lot of the updates they've been doing around it. I'm impressed that Hello Games has kept their word in terms of developing it more and more. But yeah, I think the mistake was that it came out in a box as a full price retail game, which created expectation of something more than what was there. If you want to look at it objectively, you can say, hey, people were kind of investing in this game and forward investing that was going to get better over time. But it's a little hard. You don't know that going into it. So that was sort of my main concern about that. But I have a lot of credit to Sean Murray and the team there that they have continued to invest and improve.
Or would you do something different if you could announce a game like No Man's Sky again?
I do something different. Every game is its own beast, right? And it's you look back on that, and I think the announcement of it was totally fine. I think it captured people's imaginations. It got people excited about where games could go, and I think that's a really exciting thing. I think the challenge was more in the aftermath in terms of how they continued to communicate, what they showed when, and how they shared more with people. But no, I don't look at that announcement and say that was wrongly executed or a mistake. I think it actually was a beautiful moment that this small indie team could build something that impressive that captured everyone's imagination. I think that's really special, and that's what I look for at the awards, are these pieces that get you excited about it. We're not, telling you to go buy that game or go pre-order that game. It's just a piece of content that hopefully inspires gamers and also game creators to think of where games can go next. So yeah, I'm still pretty proud of what we did there with the initial announcement.
Cool. Right now, would you say that the hype for Death Stranding reached problematic heights, or is it all justified?
Kojima stuff is always it's unique, right? And I think his fan base, loves the teases and the misdirects and all that, and that's just part of his style. Look, I've heard a lot of people say, like, hey, we just want to see more gameplay, right? And it's like, that tension between sort of gameplay and story is always something that, I think Kojima is thinking a lot about. So yeah, it's one of those games that people don't really fully understand, and that's part of the charm of it. But I get that there's sort of concern. But look, even at E3, I think people were skeptical they were going to see the actual game. It's like, oh wait, there's actual gameplay. I've had a chance to play some of the game, and it's like there's lots there. So yeah, I think that game is unique. He does amazing trailers, grabs our anticipation and attention in a big way. So yes, I think there's obviously a lot of open questions around that game, but same thing with many other games out there too. People want to see more, and there's nothing wrong with that.
Can we see Death Stranding, or can we expect Death Stranding at the Game Awards 2018?
Yeah, nothing to announce yet, but I know the kind of world premieres it'll be on stage. We haven't actually said anything yet. And over the next week or two, you'll start to hear about some of the games. We have well over probably a dozen things that'll be in the show. The ones you'll likely hear about will be some of the games that are already announced that will say, hey, we're going to have a new trailer for this game or a new reveal. There will be a whole slate of games that we won't talk about it all because they're surprises naturally.
Sure.
And saying anything will sort of give away the surprise. So, yeah, in terms of specific titles, we haven't said anything yet. But obviously, there are a bunch of games that we have a great history with and we'd love to do more with. And there'll also be, this year, a lot of new folks showing things as well. So I think sometimes people fall into the expectation of like, oh, we're going to see a new trailer for this, a new trailer for that because of history. And this year we've definitely got some really cool twists and turns in terms of what we're showing. I'm really proud of that we're not just sort of relying on like the same 3 games year after year after year. We've got some really cool stuff we're going to show.
All right. How did that relationship with Kojima came to be in the first place? The internet seems to enjoy that, let me say, bromance. If you look at Twitter or etc. or stuff like that.
Sure. Yeah. Look, Hideo's been a good friend of mine for decades. I think the first time I really spent a significant amount of time with him was in 2001 when he was finishing up Metal Gear Solid 2, and I went over to visit him days after 9/11 to write a story about the making of that game, and spent 3 or 4 days with him at his studio in Gisu in Japan. So since then, I think we've stayed in touch. I think he's always appreciated my award shows for trying to bring a little bit more mainstream attention to our industry. And he's obviously very interested not only in games but in film and in media and celebrity. So he's been a great partner there and sort of helping us build things over the years. I mean, he's asked my advice. I remember, one time I was on a bus with him in Seattle, and he was kind of asking me, like, what did I think of this idea of Kiefer Sutherland, and Snake? It's like, we have a great sort of collaboration.
Wow. Okay.
And a great respect for each other. So it's just built over the years, and he's always been very, very loyal and supportive of my show. When I went off to do Game Awards myself, he was one of the first people to sign up and say, hey, I want to be on the advisory board. I want to come and announce Metal Gear Online at that first show. Let's get Kiefer Sutherland to come. He's been an amazing partner and friend. So yeah, we're think the world of him, and he's an incredible game designer, but he's also a really good person.
Cool, Jeff. We are running out of time. Last questions. What is your pick for the Game Award 2018 for the best game 2018?
Yeah, I try and be somewhat impartial in that because I don't vote on the winners, and I work with all the game companies. It's been a really good year. What I will say is I think the 6 nominees for Game of the Year, I'm really proud of that list, and I think the internet responded pretty positively to it because we had the obvious ones like the God of Wars and Red Deads, but then something like Celeste being in there, I think is really amazing that a small 6-person indie team can compete with an army of Rockstar developers around the world. So I think that sort of eclectic mix is really is interesting. So I don't know how it's going to sort of shake out this year. Obviously, God of War and Red Dead, I think, are sort of seen as front runners just in terms of the amount of kind of attention they've got and the buzz online. But you never know. I mean, Spider-Man was really, really strong. Monster Hunter World has a massive sort of global fan base around that franchise, even though it came out earlier in the year. And Celeste is another kind of amazing game. And then you've got Assassins in there, which is, don't discount that because it's one of, I think the best Assassins they've done in a number of years. So this is a year where I don't think there's like one clear front runner. Even last year, I think it's sort of people were like, well, you've got Zelda, you've got Mario, you've got Horizon, but like Zelda's probably going to win, and it ended up winning. This year, much harder to say, I think, about how it's all going to sort of shake out. Red Dead's got, I think, the highest reviews of anything out there in terms of the Metacritics, but there are a lot of fans of, God of War 2, or, maybe there's a certain fan base that like really thinks Celeste deserves to sort of win to sort of send a different message. So I don't know. It's hard for me to pick, but we're going to make sure we celebrate, all the games live at the show.
All right, perfect, Jeff. Thank you so much for your time. Do you have some last words regarding the Game Awards 2018?
No, I just encourage everyone to tune in live. It'll be the night of December 6th here in America, December 7th over in Germany in the middle of the night. But it's such a fun experience to have everyone around the world watching the show, celebrating games, and talking about it. So I apologize it's so late at night for everyone over there. We're excited to have you guys kind of translating it and commenting on it live for the German audience. So tune in on Rocket Beans and enjoy the show. I think it's going to be our best one yet.
Perfect. Jeff, thank you so much for your time. I wish you all the best for the Game Awards, and I hope that we will see you again here at Rocket Beans in 2019.
I hope so. I need to get over there. Maybe I'll come over for TwitchCon Europe or Gamescom or something. So we'll see you soon, hopefully.
Perfect. We'll love to. Jeff, thank you so much for your time.
Thanks, man.
Thank you. Das war Geoff Keighley, das Interview zumindest mit ihm. Ich hoffe, es hat euch ein klein wenig gefallen. Wir haben, glaube ich, ein relativ breites Feld besprochen, was die Game Awards und das Ganze drumherum angeht. Jetzt geht es erst einmal weiter mit den eigentlichen Game Awards. Die Leute im Studio, das inkludiert mich, glaube ich, auch, sind, glaube ich, schon relativ gespannt, was jetzt an World Announcements, World Premieres alles zu sehen geben wird. Und natürlich wollen wir auch wissen, welches Spiel welchen Preis abräumt. Dafür wünsche ich euch erst einmal viel Spaß mit dem Programm. Ich setze mich jetzt zu den anderen und habe hoffentlich eine gute Zeit, wie ihr auch. Ciao.